Double, double, toll and trouble, fire, burning, cauldron, fire! No, bitches. I'm the next supreme. I am Shanae. Welcome to Shanae's Law. And for those of you who don't know, I am definitely the next supreme. I got the email months ago, if we're going to take it there. To be exact, I've been dropping hints for quite some time now. For September, I was showing you that I was the next supreme. If you were paying attention, then you saw everything that you needed to know. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is officially October, and do you know what that means? This is episode 1 of my new series called Haunted Hometown Horror Stories. That's right, only on here you're gonna find out all of the haunted, horrific, creepy places that we're gonna cover this month from my original hometown of Chattanooga, Tennessee. Now, Chattanooga, Tennessee is the 4th largest city in that state. And it too has a very shady, horrific past. The Civil War had a lot of historic events that took place here. And also, a lot of Native Americans as well as African Americans were done savagely wrong here. And their places of burial as well as their lifestyles were deeply disturbed, which resulted in a lot of deaths, a lot of murders, a lot of mistreatment. And you know what they say, them that die bad don't stay in the ground, which is one of the reasons why that place is so haunted and has a lot of horrific things that still take place to this day. So with that being said, let's just jump right on in. So right here on episode 1, we will be discussing the Greenwood Cemetery and Lake. Now, people call it a lake, but that's definitely a pond. How do I know about this creepy ass topic tonight? Well, I grew up there. Well, not exactly there at the pond or the lake, but I literally grew up maybe 10 minutes walking distance. So it was really like around the corner and up the way from where I lived throughout my childhood and pretty much all of my teen years. So growing up there, we had a lot of hood urban stories, a lot of urban legends, if you will. Like they had one story about some little white boy running around the neighborhood named Little Winky. They even said the streets that we lived on that were named after 3 sisters were savagely murdered in that area, and the guy that built the complex, because it was the projects, let's be very clear, they call it Greenwood Terrace. Those are projects. They're under housing authority, okay? That's definitely a HUD development. But the guy that originally built them was rumored to have been having an affair with 3 sisters, unbeknownst to them, of course. And when they found out, he killed all 3 and named the streets after them. But that's another story for another tale. So we always heard these stories, and that pond around the corner was topic all the time. People say that there were bodies in a lake, and people would murder people and throw them in the pond because of the parasites would eat through the flesh and help get rid of the evidence. Would eat the flesh off to the bone. That was one of the things, to get rid of the evidence, because they've eaten it off of the bone. And I remember they would say, I didn't want to look, so I didn't look. It would flood really bad over there sometimes, and they always said when it rained very heavily for maybe a week or so and the pond would flood, the bodies, all the skeletons would come up to the surface until the rainwater evaporated, of course. So you've always heard horrible things about that place. And the energy was so bad and demonic. And unfortunately, when you get demonic people with negative intentions and that type of force field, of course horrible things are going to happen. But that pond, that whole area, even that neighborhood, because that neighborhood itself was said to be built on top of old Indian burial ground. They basically moved the headstones, but the bodies were still under there. And they built this whole development disregarding these people being able to rest in peace completely. How savage. But it was very eerie. Nobody likes that pond. Nobody likes that cemetery. It's always been creepy, creepy, creepy. So I got to wondering, things in my childhood. Why were things so bad? Why was the energy so bad? Why were the people sometimes seeming to be, dare I say, possessed and acting very demonic? And I got to researching. And that's how this whole series developed. So, the history of the Greenwood Cemetery. Now, they say this cemetery was built around 1891. And a particular story about one of the biggest hauntings of the area was this rich, wealthy, well-known couple that lived in a very large house close to the pond. They seemed to be, well-to-do couple. Everybody knew them. Everybody loved them. And of course, everything that glitters ain't gold. So eventually, tragedy struck. It seems that the wife eventually got sick and she fell ill. And I guess that was too much for her husband, even though he said through sickness and health and to death do us part. He eventually found comfort in, I guess, maybe just lust and sex from another woman. And they had an affair. And after some time, he just maybe felt like he didn't want to be involved with, his wife anymore. So he then eventually developed a plan to get rid of her. She just had to go. I guess he just wanted to cheat in peace. So he had to get rid of the wife and bring in his side whore right on in the door. So he eventually decides to take matters into his own hands. He takes her wheelchair bound and all. Mind you, she's sick and she's wheelchair bound. So he takes her, wheels her out into the pond, throws her and her wheelchair in it, which ultimately made her drown because, of course, she's wheelchair bound. And they pretty much lived on happily ever after, him and his side whore. Or so they thought. Now, although this was possibly close to a century or more ago, legend has it, the wife really didn't rest in peace. So to this very day here in 2020, when you Google haunted Greenwood Cemetery and Pond, to this day, as recently as September 2020, people are still commenting about their horrible encounters with that lake and pond. Some of them say that you can see her rolling through the cemetery and about that pond. Some say that she's in a form of a green mist and that you can still see those wheelchair tire tracks all through the cemetery and in the mud around that pond. Now, there's also a conflicting story that says you can see her in human form around the pond and the cemetery. But everybody says when you see her, you know it's her. And those tire tracks from her wheelchair are always there. Now, whether she's in the form of a green mist or an actual human form that has to be green, witnesses have said that they've seen her. They say that when they've gone to the cemetery later at night to visit a loved one after work or whatever it may be, that they hear the noises, they hear the dragging, and they hear the squeaking of the wheelchair. They say that they see ghostly green fog around the pond, most visibly at night. Now let's go on to that. Now, I know that place is haunted. I grew up around there and you can feel it. Going past that cemetery and going past that pond is some of the most dreaded things that you would ever have to do if you ever lived there. Because especially when it was dark, if it was late nights or early morning before there was any type of sunlight, you can feel it. And you are just hoping and praying that you can get around those sharp curves and corners safely and nothing happens, nothing jumps out in the street, and that you can just get the hell out of Dodge as quick as possible. Everybody that I ever grew up with hated that area. It is really terrifying. And they have the audacity to have a church like a few, maybe 150 feet away from that actual deadly pond. And I don't even think God is saving that area because Lord knows what else has happened in that pond, around that pond, or in that cemetery. Because again, Chattanooga had a lot of battles from the Civil War. There's a lot of pain and turmoil that occurred in that city. Consequently, restless spirits remain restless. Even again, talking about those projects, aka that development around the corner from the pond. They're saying that that is an Indian burial ground. Bodies were never removed, but you built on top of those people's bodies. You're disturbing them. They're not resting in peace. Who's saying everybody's soul and spirit left the actual body? It's really sad when you think about it. And another thing I always noticed growing up there, the amount of fog that that place receives is entirely questionable. Really, 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 really thick fog. And I know fog is sometimes, it happens, you know, it's precipitation, condensation. I get it. It's the water cycle. Fine. But the amount of fog and the characteristics of the fog are beyond creepy and very, very questionable. You have to have your high beams on, and you have to go slow, because even around the road it's a lot of twists and turns, and it's extremely narrow. So you've got to keep an eye out for the car coming on the opposite side of the road as well, while going past that creepy pond and that creepy cemetery. So whatever happened to that couple with his new mistress, we don't know. But we know that he murdered his wife. And we know that his wife is out here lurking these streets and the pond and the cemetery. So, me being me, we did some due diligence. We actually took a little road trip back to that city, back to the old neighborhood, to get a first-hand glance of what it's looking like now. So Team Law, which is my mother and myself, of course, we drove past both the pond and the cemetery so you all could see what it's looking like now and get an idea of what we're talking about. Because these pictures and all of this, it's nice, but you need to see for yourself. Now, of course, we went in daylight. We weren't early morning, child. We went around like 10:30. We made sure the sun and God were shining on us, but we went. And I have to say, whomever owns that pond now, if it is privately owned, because I can't find it on the internet. If I find it again, I'll put it in the video. I'll let you know somewhere within this video. It is a mess. You can't even see the pond from the street these days. It's like there's one portion of it that you can see. I'm going to show you the footage. I'm going to try to slow down. I'm going to slow that footage down so you can just see. But you can't even see the pond anymore. All those years I grew up there, you could see it. You could see the pond. You could feel it. You could definitely feel it. You felt that eerie feeling, that feeling in your gut that's like, I've got to get out of here. You could feel it. Now it looks very abandoned. It looks very unkept, and it looks worse. And I have to say, this is a disadvantage to folks because Lord forbid your car break down over there. Lord forbid you have to slow down, or what if a wreck happens and you're in that area, you might not even know that that's a pond. And if these happenings that people are saying on the internet to this day, I know some people like to fearmonger, some people like to play, but I grew up in that area. I know those people are lying. There were strange occurrences that happened in our house. Yes, granted, the maintenance men were stealing stuff, eating 7-Up cakes, stealing Coca-Colas and toilet paper rolls, but things happened in our house that we can't explain. You tell people these things that happen in your house, they look at you like you're crazy, so you don't tell anybody anymore. But growing up there, feeling that demonic energy, that unsettling rest energy, you know, a lot of those people aren't lying. If I get some of those comments, I'll put those in this video too. But how unkempt and abandoned that place looks these days, it's quite sad. It's quite sad. And it makes you wonder who owns it and why aren't y'all keeping it up? You know, I mean, is it a natural pond? It's definitely not a lake. I don't know why they call it a lake. That's a pond. That is too little. You can't take a boat out to that. You know what, matter of fact, don't take my word for it. Take a look for yourself.
That's the pond.
I know. Pond is over there. All right, this is the cemetery that they talk about. Greenwood Cemetery. The pond is directly across the street. I'm going to show you all that in a minute. So apparently this is where her body and the green mist come at night. It gets real foggy around here, y'all. Okay, so we had to turn around. Now there's a lot of trees and shrubbery in this area, as you can see. It's a lot of trees on both sides. So I'm gonna try to see if I can pan from that cemetery to show y'all this pond.
Somebody was recently murdered at the church.
News report. See, they go to the cemetery, y'all. And I'm about to pan over here. This is this church. News reported that somebody was recently murdered over here. It's coming. About right now. Now this is this creepy pond. I didn't realize all this shrubbery was right here. So it's kind of difficult for you to see it, but that indeed is the pond, and that's the creepy fence. All right. So what did I tell y'all? I told y'all it looked bad. It looked bad. It looked creepy. It looks unrecognizable. It looks like a scene from the Blair Witch Project. Well, you know, this is the sexiest witch you've seen. I'm the next Supreme. What else could you ask for? Anyway, it looks like a horror movie. It looks like somewhere you don't want to be after 9, 10 o'clock when it starts getting dark again. You don't want to be caught out there. It looks really bad. It did not look like that growing up. You could see everything. You could see the pond. You could, you could see an owl floating by. You might see a dead body. Who knows? You can't see it now. So if the dead skeletons are really floating up, you ain't gonna see it now. You just better hope you're never caught after dark or even daylight at the Greenwood Cemetery and Pond. Because that ain't no lake. You saw it, that wasn't no lake. All right. So thank you so much for tuning in to Shanae's Law. Again, I am your host, Shanae. All Halloween month long, we will be going over these creepy, haunted hometown horror stories right here. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And you've got to like it and you've got to subscribe because it's the law around here. And don't you want to know what episode 2 is? Don't you want to know the next haunted place in that city is? If so, I'm going to see you in episode 2. Thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, protect your energy.